Welcome to Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready, we're about to live in your head rent-free. This is episode 81. We're doing a Code of Honor episode this week.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
All right, gentlemen, I have got the captain's chair, and as you both know, I love captaining Code of Honor.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of my favorite episodes to do, one of the types of episodes to do, because I love the philosophical discussion. And this is where it gets as deep as it's going to get for us.
That's right.
In so many ways.
Yes, steaming pile.
And listeners, let me tell you, he loves it, but he handles it very well.
Absolutely.
His head doesn't swell so he can't get back out of the basement or anything like that. He really does an awesome job with this. And that's why he's called the Hammer.
That's right.
Oh, and I've got something for you.
Yes, I must have the hammer when we do this.
Oh, yeah, this is the first time we've ever done this one here. You went and bought a Mjolnir.
Well, I didn't buy it. I was gifted it
Well, that's even better then.
by someone at work when he moved on. So we have a Mighty Mjolnir for Robert to hammer with.
Okay, so that way you can smack the table if you want to.
It won't come
Can
back.
you throw it? It won't come back. No.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, you might break up a little bit of Nakatomi Plaza. We don't want that.
We don't
to
want to
happen.
do that.
No. But
Because Mrs. Martin might not let me come back over to play anymore.
That's right. We don't-
Well, it's just my stuff, so she won't care.
Well, that's true. It'd be an excuse to get rid of your stuff. So yeah, we don't want to do
New
that.
stuff. You tell him, point to where you want him to go, and it's like the commercial, point and boom, it's gone, right?
I'm very fortunate, listeners, down here in Studio M. I've gotten to pretty much, this is the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Oh, very Doctor Strange of you.
Yes,
sir.
and it really does not have much of a lady's touch here. It's my stuff, and it's kind of arranged by interest and
Yes.
it's
That's cool.
I was able to do, with the way this space is laid out. I'm a big fan of, or a big collector and interest in globes and maps because I used to make maps for a living. So I've got one wall that's full of old globes.
True, yeah.
And I find them fascinating because you can date them, of course.
It's history. It's history laid out right there.
So just look for the one that says USSR on it. Yep, it's kind of not that way anymore.
Yeah, look for British Honduras and look
Czechoslovakia.
for... Yeah,
that's right.
and
Yugoslavia.
Yugoslavia.
and stuff like that, and you get a date. And then I've got one wall that is kind of a railroad theme because my wife's uncle worked for a railroad here in town for a long, long time. So I've got a couple of railroad prints and a lamp that he made out of a railroad lantern. And then, I've got kind of one bookshelf there that's a family thing, my mom and dad's stuff. And then the bar is called Nightfall.
Yes.
For Bellarmine. So we
That's
have a Bellarmine-themed bar.
I love that.
Which we all love to belly up to as often as we
Yes.
can. Yes.
So,
Some of us have plenty of belly to belly up.
I was wondering if we were going to go there. Yeah.
So I'm really thrilled to host the guys and host this recording session here at Studio M.
You and I both are lucky enough to have a man cave. Your man cave does not exist anymore.
It's not a cave. It's
moved.
upstairs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it's
He's
upstairs.
got kind of a man penthouse.
He does. He has
That's
a man
exactly
penthouse.
right. Well, the top floor of the Baxter building is pretty nice. I'll give
Yeah,
you that.
nice.
Now, you do share it though, but it is really.
Do I?
He has a Sanctum Sanctorum.
Well, no, you
space.
share the penthouse because
the penthouse, yeah.
because your son has a room up
Well, yeah,
there.
it's the whole penthouse.
But it's man territory.
But that is correct. There's testosterone everywhere. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a game
That's right,
room.
because Mrs. Francis in your room is downstairs on the first
That's
floor.
correct. Yeah, she has the rest of the house.
Well, that's the way it works.
That's the way
I have my
works.
basement, you have your basement, you have the penthouse. They get the rest.
That's pretty much
Almost
it.
everything that is quintessentially mine is in the basement.
That's right.
Where she can't see it.
Well, we also have we have the game room upstairs too, which is what we're kind of calling that one den area.
Right.
And I got to decorate that with my son. He insisted that I decorate it in manly comic book ways, which we've done.
Now, that's not a phrase you hear very often.
But you should. Absolutely.
But I get it. I agree.
Absolutely, because it's all that sort of stuff there, and I was given free reign to do all that in those two spaces
it's
only.
Very
of course.
Sheldon and Leonard space.
Yes. I think we've all done the same thing. We have made areas of our man space by subject or area of interest.
Yes.
So in mine, I've got the two houses. Now, granted, right now I'm sharing part of mine because my brother is staying with us. But currently my office area is my business-related stuff and my theology books. Mm-hmm. Where my computer is. Computers. And then over in the entertainment area, I've got, the long bookshelf of comic-related stuff in history and fiction.
Yep.
As well as the comics in their storage area.
Yeah.
And then behind that, though, I've got my true comic area, or not true comic area, but the other part of it is where I've got the drawing table and the prints and the art and what have you. So it is all very much, this area is for this, and this area is for that.
Yes.
So we all have nice libraries, too.
The libraries, yes. And so we've got the libraries, and I don't have a comic book space.
True.
I have a gun space instead.
Well, yes.
The gun room.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny how our spaces all include library.
All Renaissance men of affairs should have a library of something. I just think that that's kind of what you do as a guy. You should have a great library.
Yeah, I am very much a person who feels that books ought to figure into your life some way.
Yes. Absolutely, and this kind of circles us back to where we are, because that's where wisdom is kept. That's the repository. Yes. And that's one of the reasons we're able to pull what we do here, because I like to think all three of us are well educated and well read. And there are consequences that come from that. There is fruit that is, born out from that. And this episode is just one of those obvious ways that happens.
Yeah. Our libraries all take different forms. We all have different things in them, but
some similarities.
Quite a few similarities, common interests. It's one of the things that makes this a great triumvirate, is because we complement each other's primary areas of interest.
That's interesting.
There's overlap, but each of us are our own experts in certain areas.
Listeners, Mr. Francis here is our resident expert on English history.
That's true.
I have 3 books on it, but you've got
cases.
I have got a book for every English king from William the Conqueror up through the last Catholic king, Henry VII, plus many in between.
So the last good king.
You could say. Yes, little joke there.
My shelf is a little heavier on 19th century American history, like we discussed last episode.
You have far more biographies.
You do. We have Civil War shelves, though.
Oh, both you
and I do, Robert.
We do, yes.
In fact, I don't even know how this happened, but probably 20 years ago, there was, for some reason, a book publisher published a whole hardback series of Civil War books.
Yes.
There were like 25, and we all have some of them.
I got one over here.
And the local bookstores had them, and they didn't sell many of them, so they reduced them down slowly.
$5 a pop or something like that. $5 a pop,
and we were able to jump all over that. And I have a shelf full of them. You have a shelf full of them. You got some of them, and we don't all have the same ones.
But there is some overlap.
There is some overlap. Some of them we do. And they're fantastic. Because these were reprints of older books on a shelf-stable fashion in hardback.
Yes.
They really are kind of cool.
Yeah.
They're great resources.
They are.
And they look nice on the shelf, too.
Yeah, a lot of my stuff is now digital. Although mostly it's my reading for entertainment is digital.
Yeah.
Things that I like, I like on the bookshelf.
Oh, yeah.
I am less of the ebook enthusiast than you guys are. I don't know, there's something appealing about having the pages.
Well, if your eyesight works for that, that's great. Yeah. Even though I had eye surgery last year, I got to have great light to read a physical book. But with the backlight given by my iPad or even my iPhone, I don't have that issue.
Yeah.
So I'm naturally tending towards those ebooks now.
I read less on my iPad than I do on my Android. Like, yes, I am a true Renaissance man. I have a Windows PC, an iPad, and an Android phone.
You got all the tech bases covered.
That's right.
So, yeah, I'm probably the most old-fashioned on that. But, I am the person who will say to the family, why are you asking me? You have some knowledge of human experience in your hand or in your back pocket. Get your phone out and find out.
Google it.
That's right.
So, anyways, that is an incredibly long digression to start out an episode.
We have walked around the barn about 3 times.
We did.
I like that because it was it's a window.
It's a window into us.
Window into snakes and otters.
It's fun. Come on, guys.
Well,
it's fun.
That's important for Code of Honor because Code of Honor is the ultimate window into each of us.
Yes,
it truly is.
Well, that's why we titled it to what it is, because we actually agonized a little bit about what are we going to call these, because we could have thought great quotations. But that's not really what we wanted, because it's not just a good quote. It's a good quote that says something, that's meaningful, that says something uplifting and worth hearing. You know?
I don't know about uplifting all the time.
Not necessarily.
Well, yeah, because we did that Nietzsche themed one.
Nietzsche was a downer. I'll give you that.
That was a bit of a downer, and of course mine was a little bit tongue in cheek. You know,
Well, but sometimes
God is dead. Nietzsche is dead. God.
Yeah, but sometimes that points to the way things should be. You know, you only notice the absence of something.
There's something to learn from each of the quotes, so that's
of course. There's always
it's that window into how we think, how we approach things, how we're alike, how we're different.
Yeah. And wisdom. There's always a wisdom there.
Yeah,
we hope.
Well,
the point
so
of
far,
books, the point. Well, it's the point of exploring what other people have thought.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those things in the current moment of a 20-year-old thinks of something, and he or she thinks they're the first one that ever thought of that.
Right.
And we're here to tell you that no. Gregory of Toulouse thought of that in 1354 or something. You know, I'm making that up, but you know, you're not the first person to think of that idea, and we're that funnel that's putting that out there for people.
That's right, because there's lots of great things any of us can take from this.
There's a lot to learn from what others have said before. Don't kick out the past just because the past did not include TikTok.
Oh, aren't you the jaded one?
Well, it is a common theme that we come back to in many ways. That the past, if it ever totally loses its value, I believe society is on a death watch.
It's straight to the ovens.
Express elevator to hell, gentlemen, going down.
Yeah. I mean, we all said essentially, it's on a death watch, straight path to the ovens, or elevator to hell.
I was quoting Hudson from Aliens. You guys know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you have to understand where you've come from to be able to have any point in where you're going.
Yeah.
Because you're right. None of us almost never have an original idea. The only thing original is how we express them, how we build off of them.
What they mean to you.
Right.
And that's the point of Code of Honor is...
pointless discussion of eternal questions.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really pointless.
And they pretty much is eternal, though.
Yeah, they are. They are.
We always manage to get that in there somehow.
And Code of Honor is
worth
the
something
one
for everyone.
Comes through.
So let's get started on this. Gentlemen, which one of you is going first? We did not decide that as we know, they go first. And whichever one wants to go first, it's up to them. But I always follow up, and I manage to tie it all together. That's why I am called the Hammer.
As he picks up
I think you'll have a challenge tying these together, because I would like to go first.
Please do.
Please do. Challenge.
So
yeah.
Sometimes these quotes are things that I have sought out or come across, but sometimes they're things that, and this is just how my head works, sometimes they're things that pop up in my head, and I was like, why is that in my head? In the current moment...
I'm sorry. Dare we say spontaneous ejaculation? I'm sorry. I don't know why that came to me, but okay.
That's okay.
But it's okay.
It came to you after talking about Martin's head.
Oh, Lord. Let's not go there. Skip a bit, brother.
Skip a bit. So, yes, listeners, this is a window into how Martin's brain works. And it's probably not something that you want your brain to work this way. But, of course, the current moment is we're unfortunately still in the throes of the pandemic. And in a really bad spot, unfortunately. But I think it's in this moment, it's easy to lose perspective about the pandemic. Is it serious? Yes. Do you want to catch it? No. But is it something you can manage and still proceed with your life? Yes, I think so. And the reason that is because this quote comes back in my head. And this quote is from a film, Michael Mann's Heat. If you've not seen Heat, it's from, 95, 96?
Thereabouts, yeah. I have checked that out. Yeah.
It very famously includes the big bank robbery and shootout scene with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and Val Kilmer in the streets of Los Angeles. That's kind of what it's famous for. But a great ensemble cast. And this is one of Al Pacino's lines. And the setup is that he is meeting one of his snitches, Albert, in a bar, and he's meeting Albert's brother, Richie. And Richie's played by Tone Loc, the rapper. And Al Pacino's character, Vincent Hanna, is trying to get some information about the gang that he's after. And he's trying to draw this out of Richie. And Richie says, hey, I get killed telling you this stuff. And Hannah's reply is, you get killed walking your doggy. It's a throwaway thing, but if you think about that, it's all about how life can be kind of ephemeral. Anything could happen. We could be in the middle of the pandemic and I could still get run over by a car. Would they list my death as COVID related? I don't know. I mean, if I test positive after I get run over by a pickup truck. And so it plays on my mind that, yes, there's risk to life, whether we're in the pandemic or not, but manage your risk and try to move on. And don't let fear dominate your life. And listeners, let me tell you something. I'm not a brave person. I didn't serve in the military.
We can attest to that.
I can't.
I'm sorry. It was there. You said it.
No,
I
you're
had
right.
to hit that
You're
pitch.
right. I am not a person who could jump out of an airplane. I don't even like being on ladders. I'm not a brave person, but I'm trying to not live in fear.
Well, fear or bravery doesn't have to be about putting yourself in physical danger. Matter of fact, I would argue that is the least of the types of bravery that there are. Because it too is fleeting. Either you get past it or you die. Although there is the middle ground where you break your neck, but
Well, yeah, that usually means dying too. You could.
You could be paralyzed. But my point is, though, that rarely are the effects eternal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I get you.
Except the dying part. That's eternal.
Courage isn't the absence of fear.
It's the handling of fear.
Yeah, it's being afraid but still moving on.
It's Nelson Mandela. I mean, most obviously, but many others have said that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. Fear is important. We cannot live without fear. Without fear that comes from pain. Pain is what causes us fear. We fear the fire because we know that we'll burn our hand if we touch the hot stove. Right?
Right.
So fear is something we cannot live without. If we had absolutely no fear, we wouldn't make it past our third birthdays.
We'd be Daredevil.
I was hoping that was going to come up. Yes, that's right. There's only one.
But he had a lot of things to compensate.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
To help him out with things. Fear is incredibly important.
It's an important anthropological adaptation. Yeah.
Well, otherwise the species would not have survived.
Well, and everything has fear.
Sure.
Yeah.
Every animal has fear. It's part of nature because it's part of how we're built. Is that we want to avoid pain and seek pleasure.
That's right. Survive and procreate.
So as Robin Williams once said, if we can't kill it, we'll screw it. Well, he didn't say screw.
That's right. He used the F word. Yeah. Which he was famous for doing.
So it is important, and learning how to manage that is the ultimate test, I think, of not just character, but your ability to live fully, a full, true person. I don't like to talk about humanity as a sliding scale because that has dangerous overtones. Because nobody is subhuman, but not everybody fully lives their humanity.
Each responds according to their own gifts too.
Yes. Hopefully,
every man dies. Not every man really lives.
Yes, and the ability to live. Good deal of that is learning how to deal with your fear to get past it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to really live.
You've opened the door. I'm going to have to walk through it. I'll give you a quotation from the great James T. Kirk. Risk is our business. That's what the starship's about. That's why we're aboard her.
Oh my God! I just realized last week we didn't do a single Star Trek quote.
We didn't. Oh, I'm falling down. I'm sorry.
So we need two for this
episode.
episode.
I'm sure we'll find another one. That's correct.
Yeah, no Star Trek references when we talked about John Hay and the New American Century.
That would be kind of hard to work in.
Have you ever known me not to make it work though? Come on.
It was really a hurdle. It would have been It would have been Everest.
Yeah,
and I just missed it. But But seriously though, that's true.
Yeah.
That's kind of risk is we are human beings. Life itself is risk. There's no way around that. What is acceptable and what is mitigated. That's the word that I think we didn't use that I kind of like to use with regards to this pandemic. Because you cannot stop infection. You can't. People will get. Yeah,
you can limit it.
You can limit it, which is mitigate it by being smart.
Yeah,
and that's what we're about to do, and that's what we're trying to do. But that does not mean mitigation does not fall to the expect of 100% complete isolation and not going.
Mitigation is not elimination.
Well, that's it. That's very good.
It's you're right. It's seeking knowledge to understand what you're up against.
That's correct.
Which I think is sorely lacking right now in our world. That I think we really don't know what we're up against here.
Well, that's part of the problem.
We've heard a lot of conflicting things.
We can't think our way out of this easily.
Yeah, and of course, people will say, "Well, trust the government." Well, you were also the people that told us 20 years ago, "Don't trust the government."
Experience shows that that's not always a winning premise.
What's the John Lennon quote that's in Ferris Bueller that we love so much too? I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me.
But then he was the walrus.
He was the walrus.
Yeah.
So, I've got to take in this information. I've got to synthesize it for myself.
That's right.
Test it against my own experience. Decide what I'm going to trust. And use those processes then, not to let fear run my life. Not to hole up in the basement and stay here.
And
I'm going into the office every day, guys.
Yeah.
I'm out in the world.
What you just said is going to lead very well into what he's going to talk about. And I am going to tie all these things together like you won't believe.
This is great. We've done it.
Because we weren't sure we were going to be able to do that.
All right. And with that, then, I'm going to pass the baton to Francis.
I think you summarized it really well. That was perfect.
I'm going to let him go then.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
And not take off with anymore.
Yeah. Now, most of the time when we do this, sometimes we coordinate. But most of the time we just say, I want to do this. And sometimes we'll say, well, I've got 3 or 4. I'll pick this one and go with that. This was not the case this time.
Right. This is a total lack of coordination. So this is, again, it's right up my alley.
We are trying to stump you. We've never been able to do this.
This is Robert's Everest.
That's right, because this was a tough one. Because these are kind of not... He's figured out how to do this somehow.
I got it.
A little setup for this one here. I don't know if you all have been watching the Netflix TV series The Crown.
I have not. I've seen parts of it.
You really should. The 4th season just dropped. It's the story of Queen Elizabeth. It's
Elizabeth II.
Elizabeth II. Well, yes, I suppose we should say that. Yeah, Elizabeth II.
Our gal. We've done
that's
an
right.
episode
She's
on
one of our heroes,
absolutely,
so to speak,
in many respects. And it's intended to be 6 years, 6 seasons. 4 have now dropped. The 4th one just dropped. The first 2 will cover her early years of her reign, actually before her reign, how she ascends. It covers from like 1948 up through 62. It's with Claire Foy, who won an Emmy, by the way, for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Matt Smith, who played Prince Philip, whom we all love because he was the 11th Doctor on Doctor Who. So, we kind of like that anyway. The 2nd, the 3rd, and 4th seasons were, they recast for older folks, and Olivia Colman plays her, as Tobias Menzies plays Prince Philip. You probably know him from Outlander. He was Jack Randall, as well as he was Edmure Tully in
Claire's husband.
Claire, yes.
And he's appeared in Bond films too, right?
He has. That's correct. I'm a big fan. Tobias Menzies is a really great guy. My wife is in love with him, but I try to get over that. But anyway, that story is, of course, it's covered this 4th season, which we're not finished with yet. My wife and I, this is one of the things we watched together. It's a great, I cannot recommend it enough. It is a great understanding and showcase of the power of marriage and how it can and should be able to withstand anything. And I'm sorry, she's the frickin' Queen of England.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a stressful marriage, and yet they've been married 73 years as of right now. So that's kind of one of the reasons we're attracted to the idea. But this 4th season takes place in the 80s. So it brings in Princess Diana and, from my perspective, Margaret Thatcher.
The Iron Lady.
The Iron Lady, who is played by one of our other folks that we love, Gillian Anderson.
X-Files.
Oh my God. You want to talk about, like I said, she flat out nails it. We know she's a great actress. We love her anyway. Wow. She plays a Margaret Thatcher like you wouldn't believe, because she's one of the main characters in this series. And it's...
Does she say don't go all wobbly? Because I'd love to hear her say that.
No, but she's got,
she's not even British, is she?
No, she's not. But oh my God, you guys,
she's a great actress.
You have to watch this. She's really that good, and she comes across because we grew up during the time of Margaret Thatcher. That was when we were in our ascendancy, high school and college, and the world that we knew, we're seeing reflected on the screen, which is kind of fun. They're going through the Falkland Islands War right now. No, I won't.
The fucking islands?
I wasn't going to say that.
Wait, what was it?
See,
More Robin Williams.
Robin Williams did that. Yeah, exactly. No, it's Falkland Islands. Anyway, she's been on my mind because I'm seeing her so well portrayed.
Yes.
So I said, when we got together, I'm going to do a Maggie quote. We've not done one. We should. And the one that I was drawn to, and I had to get the exact quote because I've used a kind of a corruption of this several times because I find it fascinating. So it's one I've wanted to do anyway. But it's about consensus. The corruption that I always use, consensus is the absence of leadership, which I'm sure she probably said that in certain ways. But the quotation that I have, the exact quotation from her, is slightly different. And I think it's worth pursuing for us. But I'll give you the quotation from her. It's about consensus, as I said. Consensus seems to be the process of abandoning all beliefs, principles, values, and policies. Now, there's a longer piece after that, but I'm going to zero us in on that to kind of keep us together.
What is that longer piece?
Oh, you want to? I'll give it to you. Yes, she says, so it becomes something in which no one believes and to which no one objects.
See, I think that's important.
Okay, that's
I really do. I think you do need that.
Okay, absolutely.
I mean, it's your quote. Don't get me wrong.
No.
I think that's important.
Trying to keep it simple here, but I'll read it again together so that
it's
way. It's
kind of like the biography that stops with the death.
Very good. You're exactly right. You need the whole piece for context. Consensus seems to be the process of abandoning all beliefs, principles, values, and policies, so it is something in which no one believes and to which no one objects. In many respects, this sounds to me like consensus is a tool that is used to dumb everything down in order to get everybody to agree.
So just thinking, the least common denominator, the least offensive thing that we could do to...
Yeah.
That's right. And
certainly you don't want to offend anybody anymore.
Well, that's kind of why this is, so apropos right now, is you're so worried about not offending, you're willing to abandon all your principles in the name of that. And I see that as dangerous. And she did too.
Yeah.
Because principles have to be, they're supposed to stand for something.
Yeah.
And you can't if you have the clarity of mind to articulate your principles, and she certainly did. Disagree with her if you want to, but nobody doubted where she lay.
Yeah, I mean, like her or not, she was
very
a
clear.
Person of principle.
Very clear too. She could articulate, she could state it, and she was consistent with it.
And she didn't care whether you liked it or not.
Absolutely. She said if you go through life, and says this actually in The Crown, she gives this quotation to Queen Elizabeth. She said, if you go through life without enemies, you're not doing anything.
That's a very good point.
And she actually quotes a poem that she reads on in part of the episode about that. I can't give it to you, but it's very clear on that. She doesn't care. She wants to do the right thing, and it doesn't matter if you agree with her or not. But she knows what's right. And see, that moral certitude, that confidence in your own being correct, it's not just because you want it that way. She's definitely not that. She has a reason why that she can articulate this is the right thing to do, and it's never self-serving. That type of confidence usually scares the bejeebus out of people. That's one of the reasons.
Sure does.
Absolutely, because nobody can be that right. She didn't care. She knew she was, and in most of the time, she really was.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, on the one hand, we like people that have that moral certitude.
Oh, right? Yeah, we're attracted to that to a degree.
But we also, because we're creatures of dichotomies, good word, dichotomies.
We use that a lot. It hasn't appeared lately. It's time for it to come back.
It's Jungian.
It's very Jungian. That's right.
But because we are humanity, we are people of dichotomies. We also like things. We like the moral certitude, but we also don't like it when people have too much certitude. Right.
That's right.
Because on one hand, we like that firm leadership.
That's right.
But on the other hand, we don't like it when you're smug about it.
Yeah, nobody can be that smart.
We don't like anybody who, if in our perception, thinks they're better than us.
Exactly.
Well, that's
this is
and it's easy to get that perception, even if it's not true.
Right. And this is an interesting thing about her. I never granted, now we were more philosophically aligned with her than others, so maybe we don't see it because we're blind to that. But I never got that kind of sense from her that she thought she was better than somebody else.
No,
she had moral certitude.
Yes.
But it wasn't because of her innate goodness.
It's not hers. She's referring to a principle that she holds.
Right. She had certain values. I like to use the word values.
That's good.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think of things.
Well, she's from a modest background.
Right.
She was. Yeah, absolutely.
When you have core values, the reason I call them core is because that's just it. They should define you. Mm-hmm. And when you, as she says, when you give into consensus, you are likely throwing those things away. But I like to contrast her style of that moral certitude to what we see so much today.
Yeah.
Where moral certitude, and I'm speaking about certain types of people in particular, but I won't name them. Their moral certitude literally seems to be tied to the fact that it's because they are so good. They are better than everyone else. That's what leads to cancel culture.
Ah, okay, yeah. There is a entitlement that goes with that.
Well, I don't know that's necessarily
only
an
we have the
entitlement
answers.
so much as yes, it's just that we are so much better than anyone else.
It's not tied anymore to a moral precept. It's tied to a political precept.
Yeah, well, and how you feel about something.
Yeah,
well, that's your
and it's not to say that the things that those the people who are like that what they want is bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. How they go about things is where I tend to have my problems with it.
Persuasion is gone.
Yes,
making an argument about something is gone.
Right,
and it's now the argument is if you don't believe this, you're a pig.
Right.
Well, if you do not agree, we will destroy you.
Yes. It all goes back to as we said, you don't make compromise with the devil.
That's right.
And you can make the argument compromise as part of consensus, but in a way it's not, because the way I think of consensus is basically you're sitting around in a meeting and you need consensus to get out of the damn meeting.
Well, yeah. Well,
and that's literally the way it is.
That's right.
We're not leaving this room until we come to an agreement on some on a way forward, whatever it is.
And that presumes everybody's abilities, knowledge, and opinion has equal or decent value.
Well, I think in reality what it ends up being, consensus ends up being those with the loudest or strongest voice or the most energy or willingness to die on that hill is what becomes the consensus attitude. It's not really consensus, it's the imposition of somebody's will in a very what's the phrase?
Dictatorial?
No.
It's it's Roosevelt.
Passive aggressive.
Yeah, bulldoze everybody else. And then what happens is as soon as you walk out of the meeting, everyone undermines the consensus at every turn.
Right.
So
and
just does whatever it is they want to do.
Because essentially we always return to our core values. We may violate them and violate them often.
Or like you say, in a meeting, just walk away from them. But as soon as you sit back down,
give them their way to shut them up so we can get out of here.
Yeah,
and then
everybody's been in a meeting like that.
Yeah,
and then,
everybody.
And I know I'm right, so when I get back to my desk, I'm going to do it my way and show them that I'm right.
Right. So consensus, you're right, has taken the place of persuasion.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be persuaded. Not everybody should be persuaded. Yeah. The value is what comes out of it. That discussion. Mm-hmm. That exchange of ideas.
Yeah, because you've got to be able to defend your position in order to show your position is worth having.
Well, persuasion
in group dynamics.
It's a lost skill.
It is.
Yeah. Persuasion is a lost skill.
It's who can yell the loudest.
Yeah, because you're very much right. The current moment is very much who yells the loudest. And
who has the most power.
Who bulldozes everybody else.
I don't even it's necessarily about that. Because I think a lot of things have...
Who can cancel the others the fastest.
Yeah.
Well, that's a form of power.
Well, it is, yes. It's not the formal power.
No, it doesn't necessarily... although we all know that, whoever has the power, and, if the CEO is in there and he demands that it's different, even though it's the stupidest idea in the world, there are many cultures in business or in politics that go along with the guy with power, even to their own detriment.
Well...
But there's a resolution to that, too. If the CEO is wrong...
The board can remove
the
it.
board fires him, gives him his golden parachute, and
there's
go
a
a different
presumption
direction.
that the board is independent though and is willing.
Larger companies, they generally are. Smaller companies, that can be an issue.
Yeah.
Not every company has a board. I mean, that's,
Yeah. But they're
Well, the market takes care of that though.
Yeah.
Because if you make a bad enough
generally,
mistake,
yeah.
you got to change.
Well, you can do something stupid or really wrong long term that has short term benefits.
Sure.
And sometimes the market doesn't correct that.
That's right. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Trevor Slattery was in the bathroom last episode. We didn't see him, but he's back again this time. We don't go in there for at least 20 minutes, gentlemen.
So,
Well,
are you ready?
Well, I want to.
You ready to turn
I
this over
want
to Robert?
to hear Robert tie these things together. He's already pulled out the hammer,
But
but
before we
we got to take a slug of this
Yes.
dang old bourbon.
A quick break, listeners. Grab another little Debbie out of the bowl there. I've already
I need
had
to try
two.
the chocolate.
I had
We got Christmas tree
trees.
little Debbies.
Yeah, some are vanilla and some are chocolate. I have vanilla first. I'm gonna have chocolate like Robert.
So
get
get another little Debbie out of the bowl. But we are back with Quarter Horse Reserve.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Worked out
It's
great last
growing
time.
on me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the more
Yeah,
that I-
again,
the more I drink.
probably I don't want to say harsher, but a little stronger flavor. A little more. Maybe it's been in the wood a little longer. It's got quite a deep caramel color. So little note of
Thick. I think that's what we described.
yeah,
it
a
as
little
last
bit
time.
a little bit more
Viscous.
chew.
That's a good word. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Viscous.
And a little bit of a chocolate note to it, kind of a semi-sweet
Yeah.
chocolate note.
I like this for the difference from the ones we generally have.
Yeah,
As
it's
we talked
definitely-
about the last time we were
It's
together.
unique.
The burn takes place in a different way. That's one of the ways. One of the things that really defines some kind of whiskey. And yes, technically bourbon is a whiskey, but I like to think bourbon is a whole nother thing. It's like I would not call Scotch just a whiskey. It's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other thing.
It's its own thing. That's right.
That's right. But that burn, for some it's in the gullet, some it's down to the stomach. This is one that's more in the upper palate, I think is the way we put it the last time. And it moves, which I really enjoy. It seems to slowly work its way down, which is I think a novel sensation.
Stays with you a little while, which is good. I like that.
Yeah. It's one that you can definitely. I think that's what makes it a sipping bourbon.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because it stays with you. You don't have to guzzle it to get anything out of it. You can sip it and enjoy that one sip for 5 or 10 minutes or longer, depending on how big you sip, I guess. But yeah, it's a good bourbon. This is a good choice.
Yeah, I like it. Again, I'm just picking it blind off the shelf. It's like, hey, a square bottle.
Right.
So let's try this out.
Well, I'm
Quarter
sure,
Horse Reserve.
I'm
is from-
sure their marketing department really wants to hear that sort of thing if they're
Yeah.
listening, because that's hey, that
It's
got
different.
you to buy their product.
Who's the distillery?
I think it's O.Z. Williams. I'd have to get the bottle.
It's out
to
of
look.
It's out of Owensboro, actually,
Yes.
which is different than most of the ones that we do. For those our worldwide listeners, Owensboro is about an hour and a half west of Louisville,
Generally, we do Nelson County, Bardstown bourbons. That's
which
my
is
favorite.
about 45 minutes south.
All right,
of
so
Louisville.
O.Z. Tyler Distillery, Owensboro, Kentucky.
Okay. Don't know that one yet, but
No,
Aged
we like
minimum
their
of
product.
aged a minimum of 2 years in New Oak, Quarter Horse Reserve,
I like it.
92 proof.
It was a good, you stepped off the reservation a little bit, stepped out of the comfort zone, and as usual, it paid off.
all right. So,
Well, before Robert, I'm going to interrupt you one more time, though.
okay.
I just appeal to the listeners. If you have a bourbon you would like us to try, you can email us or hit us up on Twitter or whatever. Of course, go to the website.
There's always great
www.
stuff there.
Yep, snakesandhonours.com.
And you can find our email addresses there. We don't need to go over
Absolutely.
those here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And we always try to have new content every week, at least. Those of us that captain particularly kind of talk about what we're going to talk about. But we always try to have new content on, because it's Martin Mondays and
Robert Wednesdays
and Francis Fridays. So there's always something out there.
We're still trying to get really consistent with that, though.
Yeah.
Life has been really crazy for me at work, so it's been difficult for me to produce a whole lot of content.
Yeah,
but
we're getting the website off the ground, but visit it. You'll find how to contact us. But we would love to hear what you got to say about bourbon.
Or anything else.
Or anything else. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, because we get a lot of feedback from listeners all the time. I'm like, why don't you talk about this, guys? Why don't you talk about that? And
That's right.
Many of these episodes kind of stem from that. We say,
right.
Somebody was saying, why didn't you go
We are
deeper
not
with this?
short of topics, but we can always use more to add to the list. Because we constantly rearrange. When something comes up that strikes our fancy, we will move it ahead of the schedule.
Yes, we'll boot stuff to later.
That's right.
And sneak it in. Go,
All
Robert.
right, so, before I go into my summation quote,
Okay.
let's summarize yours again. So, Martin, yours was...
You get killed walking your doggy.
That's right. So it's all about managing risk in life. Life is dangerous.
Life, yeah. There's don't be ruled by fear.
Right. So, and that's a great way. I love the way you put that. So, Francis, yours is about consensus.
And of the abandoning of principles and beliefs in order to achieve that.
Right. Okay. So that's a good setup. So, my quote is from a gentleman named Francis Chan. It's Francis with an I, so very much like your Francis.
Yes, the male Francis.
The male Francis. It turns out he's actually a Protestant pastor. I actually did a little bit of looking up on him because I have a list of quotes that I pull from, but I don't always necessarily know who the person is I'm going to be quoting from.
Sure, okay.
Because to me, the quote was more important than the source. So I did a quick look up on him, and strikingly enough, this is a man who, even though he's a Protestant pastor, apparently has spoken highly of the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist.
Wow.
So I'm actually going to do some more reading on him.
That sounds very Catholic friendly.
Yeah,
That's a good thing.
Very much so.
We're very Protestant friendly. Of course.
Yes. We'd like to convert all of them. Leave no one behind.
That's right.
So, anyways, he's a teacher as well as author and pastor. Which, when you're Protestant, a lot of that tends to go together. So his quote is this: "Our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter."
Whoa.
Now, I think this is profound on its own.
Well, yeah.
Because
fear should not be failure, but succeeding.
Right.
Another
way of putting that, succeeding at things that don't really matter in life, is this. Forget what motivational speaker said this years ago, but I think it was Stephen Covey. He was talking about the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency is climbing to the top of the ladder. Mm-hmm. Effectiveness is realizing you've climbed the wrong ladder.
Yeah.
Very quick summary of that. And this is kind of that way. You don't want to be good at things that are either the wrong things to be good, that are bad things, or that just don't matter. Because I think a lot of people get stuck in a rut, and sometimes they get to be good at what they do in those ruts. And so it's hard to break out of them. And so that's being successful in something that doesn't really matter. Now, it may matter in the sense that it may put food on their table and that sort of thing. So not all ruts are good. Certainly you can be stuck in a rut that is a spiral downward into your own personal hell.
Well, addiction kind of comes to mind as that,
Very much so. And so the thing we should fear is doing that, not a failure. Because just as Martin said, when you're talking about fear, everything is a risk. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that fear of failure leads us to doing the safe thing. And that can be bad because it doesn't enable us to live fully. As I said earlier, it's one of those themes I like to come back to, living fully our humanity. And that fear of failure can lead us down the safe path. Now, that fear of failure, that fear of rocking the boat, that fear of sticking out, however you want to put that, to me, those are all similar things.
Yeah.
Because you can, the wrong kind of hammer can come down on you for sticking out in the wrong setting or in the right setting.
Yeah, and that's one of the fears I work to overcome.
There you go.
Is that, I don't want to be different. Then I realized, you know what? I kind of am different, and I don't care.
We're all individuals.
I'm not.
I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. You know
It's okay to be different.
Exactly. You know, that's one of those things that I talked about earlier. That it's a dichotomy. We want to belong, but we also want to be a little unique too.
Yeah.
Right.
And they are constantly butting heads.
Yeah, I'm going to get a tattoo just like everybody else so I can show I'm an individual.
Exactly. And so that fear of failure leads us to Francis's consensus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that fear of failure often leads us to abandon what's important. Either because we're too afraid to take the risk, or because we don't want to rock the boat, or just because we don't have the mental energy to swim against the tide, to go against the grain, to buck the system. And so that's how, I think more often than not, consensus in this sense happens. So fear of failure, fear of managing the risk leads us to abandoning our principles.
Yeah.
And come to consensus.
Don't be afraid to be Gibraltar.
Yes.
It's okay. You can be unmovable if it's for a principle.
Right.
If it's for a core
That
value.
presumes it's a good principle.
Be prepared to define it and defend it.
Yeah.
You can't just do
Yes.
one.
Yes, I mean, that's
You
one
gotta
of
do
your
both.
things, too, that you always love the idea that, friction sharpens the argument.
That's right.
It does.
You better be able to explain, against all comers, why it is you believe what you believe.
Yeah.
It needs
There's
to be
a,
universal. It needs to be something that absolutely you can defend, that nobody should be able to disagree with. That's the principle.
in my list of quotes, there's another one. I'll burn it here because I don't know that I'll ever use it, but it's one I really like. And that is, if you can't explain something simply enough, then you don't really understand it.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Yeah, exactly.
So if you cannot explain what you're fighting for well enough, then you probably you need to figure it out a little bit better before you fight.
Well, that's exactly right. And because so many times, and this in the political universe, it's always this, it's because so-and-so says so. That's kind of where that comes to. Because my party says so, my candidate says so, or somebody I heard on the internet says so. That is always a false and ridiculous reason for believing something. You can and should do better.
It's confirmation bias.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes, confirmation bias can be okay because you trust the sources. Mm-hmm. But you should trust the sources because they're good sources, not just because you're in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
And
echo chamber's good.
It conforms to your experiences and to what you have had success with in the past.
Right. And, nowadays it seems like everybody's in an echo chamber politically.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Everybody who voted for Joe Biden was absolutely sure he was going to win in a landslide. Everybody who voted for Donald Trump was absolutely sure he was going to win hands down. But it didn't. Now, granted, he didn't win, but it wasn't nearly the landslide at all.
No, it was still a close race.
It was a very close race, especially percentage-wise. When you're talking a few million votes, that doesn't sound close, but as a percentage over 50 states, that's pretty darn close.
Yeah.
I mean, a handful of votes in a handful of states determine the winner. And that's almost always the case.
That's correct. Well, the polarization has happened.
Right. But I mean, even before the polarization got this bad, it was almost always that way.
Well, there's some exceptions. But
yes.
I
mean, Reagan's landslide, Nixon's landslide, those are the kind of things that was not close in any stretch of the imagination. But this whole idea, though, that fear, when it drives you, that's bad. Because fear without taking the risk is real cowardice.
That's a good way of putting it.
Because risk is what makes life worth living. Because the bigger the risk, the bigger the gain, generally.
Yeah. Well, and
now,
we're not talking about
foolish.
We're not talking about foolishness.
Right. Exactly. Some risks are too big to take.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take everything I own and mortgage everything and buy lottery tickets. Especially not Powerball, because the odds are way against me.
Right. And again, that's the idea of managing your risk.
Risk mitigated.
I mean, I could take my entire bank. Yeah, I could take my entire bank account and buy lottery tickets with it. Maybe I'd get my money back. Maybe I'd win big.
Right.
The most likely outcome, though, is that I'd have a bank balance of zero.
Right. You might win a few $100s back, but that's about it.
That's about it.
just because I can do something 1,000 times better, meaning I can buy 1,000 lottery tickets, my chances of winning are 1,000 times greater. Well, yeah, but when your chance was 1 in a million,
1,000 in a million isn't that much, or yeah,
exactly. It's really a lot.
You can't
lots
run
of
away
words.
from the math, boys.
Exactly.
People should really know that. No matter how much you think you can.
Yeah.
No matter how, because
putting $20 a week in the lottery. Hey, what the heck? You never know.
Right, because we waste $20 on all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I don't really care about that.
But wasting $2,000 a week.
That's a little different.
That's different. Yeah.
I mean, unless you're
throwing your paycheck away is
right, which is the same thing as going to the boat and playing the slots or blackjack or whatever.
Say, addiction is heavy in that area, and I'm,
and in many ways,
I have real issues with the whole legalized gambling business because I think it's predatory.
Well, it is. One of the things that is very, very common where you see legalized gambling, and I mean, just beyond the racetrack, even although you see it there too.
Yeah.
When you legalize gambling beyond things like the lottery tickets, because that's a lot easier for people to manage. It's generally done with disposable income, with rare exceptions, mostly disposable.
Yeah.
Well, I think the lottery is a tax on the poor, personally.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
But you see pawn shops and places like that that cater to and payday loans. They sprout geometrically,
like dandelions.
Exactly. When you legalize gambling,
that's right. Because
and it's not necessarily causation, but the correlation is pretty damn strong.
Whatever feeds the monster.
Yeah.
And there's a reason the house always wins. I mean, there's a reason the house is able to build these enormous, Taj Mahal, Caesar's Palace didn't come because people were winning lots of money there.
Exactly.
Only suckers buck the tiger. The odds are all on the house.
That's right. But there you go. From Tombstone, Val Kilmer.
Don't explain.
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, because you quoted Val Kilmer, not from a Val Kilmer movie, from Heat. We kind of had to.
Well, that was explaining the Code of Honor quote.
It was actually Al Pacino, of course, that was the person you were quoting.
But anyways, so I think all of these work together. To me, they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
They really
I was
are.
wondering how you were going to do this.
You've done it. You've crested Everest, Robert.
That's right.
It is my job.
Plant your frickin' flag. Boom.
So
and nail it in with a hammer.
But I also think it goes back to one of the things that is core to me.
And you didn't have a Sherpa.
And I didn't have a Sherpa. All I need is the hammer.
Right.
Well, I don't mean this in a way to denigrate, but you guys are carrying the weight. I'm just putting the icing on the
So you're in the sedan chair, and we're carrying you up Everest.
I wasn't going to explicitly go there, but all right, you guys are my Sherpas.
Okay, yeah, he did have Sherpas. That was us. That's right. Oh well.
But I think that for me, and so often
it's a good thing we can make each other laugh.
It is. But one last thing I want to say about this is that for me, one of the reasons I like this so much because this is truly goes to my core values. That's how I almost always bring the quotes and the discussion back around that, because to me, if it's truly about code of honor, things to live by, not just funny sayings. Anybody can do a show on funny sayings. Sometimes we do funny sayings.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah,
but we also tend to turn them into something serious.
Yeah, eternal questions.
Exactly.
We're going to go there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you take a movie line and it's a throwaway thing, but then you've added all this weight to it based on something that means something very personal to you. Francis and I do it all the time.
Yeah. I pull less from movies than either one of you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
certainly.
well, it also gives our listeners a likelier window into what we're doing. We don't always have to go to Cicero or Homer,
or Chesterton or whatever,
which we know. Hey, they're on the table, of course.
Right. Anything is really on the table. But I like the window that it provides and the opportunity to discuss these sorts of issues because they're not being discussed.
Amen.
Except
here at Snakes and Otters.
That's, I think, one of the services that we truly do provide. This is not me blowing smoke up our own asses. I really think that this is important, and why I really want us to reach farther is if for no other reason than what we do in this one week.
Shoot, some people never
we
get
do
an
it
education
most
until
weeks
it's from us,
but especially the history and the code of honor. But and tend to do it in our heroes, the pop culture, not quite as much, but we still do it sometimes there.
Yeah,
and Hoopa Jubes. it's easy for us to go there, but it's important because these kinds of things aren't being talked about the way they should be.
Amen.
Because as you were talking about, the art of persuasion is a lost thing. Discussion is a lost thing.
Discussion. You know, the old tagline to National Review is standing athwart history yelling stop.
Yeah.
Standing athwart popular...
Standing athwart TikTok.
Standing athwart TikTok, there is snakes and otters.
That's right. You know, and we don't need to be on Parler or Facebook or any other thing to do that. And honestly, that's balkanizing yourselves. I think that's a bad thing. You know,
balkanizing. There's a good word. Yes.
Oof.
Yeah. Haven't used that one before. That's. I'm glad. Bravo. So very well done.
Well, it's an important thing to recognize. The more we segregate intellectually, the worse our country becomes.
That's right.
In many ways,
intellectual balkanization.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Intellectual balkanization, and the effect of it is the dire political divisions that we have. It's nearly a 50-50 division, give or take a little.
Yeah.
And it's a bad thing. It really is. And if we can get people to start thinking past those kinds of lines, then, you know, that's our way of giving back to the Republic.
Well, it's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, the podcast is easy to dismiss. It certainly is fun. I mean, we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't fun.
Right.
But it does mean something to each of us uniquely and then
corporately.
Yeah, together. You know, it's Francis here is the exuberant one. We tease him a little bit about his passion, but I love it. I love his passion for it.
Somebody's got to carry that water, boys. Come on.
And for me, listeners, I mean, you've heard me talk about it before. It's me trying to live and come to terms with being an introvert and coming to terms with being somebody who maybe doesn't fit and doesn't have friends quite everywhere. I have acquaintances and people are kind. I don't mean that people bully me or are mean, but you know,
as I like to say, they wear me out.
Well, that's how it works for us.
For someone,
exactly.
I seek friendship and seek relations, but I'm not good at it. And I'm, you know, this.
So for people like us, not that extroverts don't have deep relationships, but we concentrate on fewer relationships.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's easier for us to put all of our energy into those than to divide it up amongst others.
Yeah.
Extroverts can probably have and probably do have deep relationships just like we do. We just tend to focus more on
I always say I'm notoriously horrible at small talk. If you come across me in an elevator in a building, I'm probably going to barely be able to get out, hey, how you doing?
Right.
That's all I can do. That's not me. I can't do that. If I'm going to talk to you, guess what? Saddle up. Because we're talking something for real.
Yep.
And this is that outlet for me. And then Robert is equally as passionate about all of this and has his own things that he believes in.
He's probably the most articulate of all of us, personally.
Well, thank you. I don't know that I would say that, but I appreciate that.
None of us are slouches in that area. Obviously, we can all. It takes all three of us to carry it. Three legs of the stool. That's the only thing that supports it.
This doesn't work with one of us gone.
That's correct. We could
never.
It
absolutely does not.
Yeah.
I mean, it may work. It may be entertaining, but it's not nearly.
I don't know.
Well, that's
if one of us were for ill for a stretch,
we'd have to pause.
Yeah, I think out of generosity, I think we would tell the other two, "Oh yeah, go ahead."
Right.
But the other two would go, "Nope, we can't do it."
That's right. We'll
wait. It would be very difficult.
We'll just wait.
And that's one
the
of the
dynamic is different.
Well,
any two of us together is not. We are greater than the sum of our parts.
And I think that's what brings this podcast better than any other podcast you'll find out there. Nobody does the power of three. Very few. I don't want to say nobody because we've not heard all podcasts.
It's pretty rare.
It's rare.
As far as three equals.
Yeah.
Well, that's correct.
There's often a lead and a couple of sidekicks, maybe.
Perhaps.
But
probably comedians would have sidekicks in theirs and stuff.
Or, people have guests, regular guests, things like that. A lot of them do interviews, but
we don't do
and
that.
it's not a niche either.
Right.
That's something we're bucking the tide on. Most podcasts are niche.
Yeah, we're universalists,
and we're not doing that.
Right, because even where we categorize even where we categorize the shows, there's no telling what we're going to talk about.
That's right.
I mean, we've talked about the beginnings of ancient Rome and the Civil War and modern politics and World War I. I mean, there's no telling what we're going to talk about. And I think that's the beauty
so great about us. That's correct. Yes.
I mean, I hope we're entertaining with it, but
we are.
You know, I really do. I like to think of this as one of the ways we contribute to the public discourse, hopefully positively.
The betterment of the human species, gentlemen.
I mean, let's not go too far. I mean, we still need to be able to get our heads back.
I didn't say we were doing it. I'm saying we're trying it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Our aim, our goal.
Our reach should always be for something that's just beyond our grasp.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Your reach should
Thank you, Robert Browning. There.
Should exceed your grasp.
That's right.
Yeah. Because to me, well, that's succeeding at things that don't matter. If it's easy to do, who cares?
So we took a quote from a violent movie and a politician and a preacher and turned that into a discourse about the nature of human striving for greatness.
Yep.
I'm liking it. Sounds good to me.
And yeah.
It's what we do.
That's what we do.
Yeah. Now, listeners, if you're just finding us, take note. No seasons here.
That's right. No seasons.
No seasons. We are continuous. There will be 52 episodes a year. And this is what you're in for. It could be about anything and everything.
Well, technically, this year there will be 53, because I want to say there are 53 Fridays this year.
That's awesome.
Because the 31st is 31st is a Thursday, so maybe not. I have to go back and look.
Curious, but hey, whatever, it works,
Every once in a while there's going to be a 53rd
Every Friday, there's a new, fresh episode.
Yeah. That's right.
That's right. And we got some great stuff.
Francis, buddy, what's next?
Speaking of which, yes. We're going to a heroes, and this is one we alluded earlier. Occasionally, we will kick something aside if it's topical. We're going to do that next time because, as you probably we all know, the great Sean Connery just passed away just a few weeks ago. And once that happened, I said, "Boys, we've got to, new plan, totally new plan." Like they said in Monty Python, we're going to do a Sean Connery episode. So that's what we're going to talk all about: the man, the actor, the preeminence of his craft, which is something we all love. We talk about that all the time. We're going to talk about him, toast him, remember him, his great movies, not just James Bond, although I'm sure that's going to be a big part of it. It's going to be a big part of it, of course. It's going to be fantastic, as always.
Hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes published every Friday at noon Eastern.
Spread the word. We're on all the major podcast platforms. And leave us a comment or review because that helps others find us.
We're on Instagram, Twitter, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com.
I'm Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis. Join us next week. Same snake time, same otter channel.